Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Living With Us. I'm your host, Sharon Mundia, and we're here at Park Inn by Radisson. Beautiful view. We're up at the 11th floor, and we're about to get into conversation around transformational leadership. Now, the couple I'm about to introduce started a company called Delve Training Limited, and through it, they help individuals and companies try and achieve their highest potential and their best selves. And they do that through transformational leadership. So we'll delve into that on today's topic. In today's show. I've got Faith Muturi Ngugi and I've got George Ngugi as well. Welcome, couple. I'm always so fascinated whenever I have like a couple who not only are doing life together, but also doing business together. So we'll get into that. Okay. And maybe you'll have some tips, even though we're talking about transformational leadership, we want relationship tips too in that regard. So let's start by getting to know a little bit about who you are. George, I know that you're an architect by profession. How did transformational leadership come into play? And how did you make that transition?
Good question. Thank you for that. Well, first and foremost, architecture is a leadership profession by its very nature.
Okay.
Because we envision and we visualize a design and a built form even before it has come to being. And so it's in our minds, and we have to put the concept out on paper and possibly break it down to the client who we also co-create with. But the most important is not just getting the design done, but actually actualizing it. That's where the real work is. And this is a lovely view we have right now. And as we just look around, there are lots of sites around us, the green netting and whatnot. I can tell you, as long as the green net and we have what we call hoarding, the iron sheet fence is around a site, what we call it a site, sorry, not yet a building. There are lots of people spending sleepless nights at the top of that being the architect, because they need to push through that vision and the concept and the design and surmount innumerable hurdles. There are so many hurdles that keep on popping up, to be able to come up with some of the with a fine finished product like what you see around. If you see something that's looking good and fancy and squeaky clean, there were lots of sleepless nights.
Yeah.
There are lots of difficult conversations. There was a lot of robust conversations between different parties,
Yeah.
And so we like to call what we do soft skills, and what I do when I still do practice architecture, hard skills, quote unquote, because it's technical and it's hard. But what became very evident to me in my progression as an architect is there is a major need to link the hard skills. We architects, engineers, scientists, researchers, whatever you want to say, I mean, people who are very steeped in technology and science, even people in tech, and everyday people. And those everyday people often are the clients. So in learning to be able to, or the need to be able to be more human, be more soft, because why it's a challenge to deliver buildings or deliver projects is because projects are done by people and for people. So on one hand, you have the people who are building the house. On the other hand, you have the people for whom the house is being built. Make sense? And you have to manage both and ensure that there's an outcome that's favorable for both parties towards the goal which you set to achieve. So it's quite a leadership career. And more often than not, as a project lead of the consultant team, sometimes you have to lead your client. It's the kind of discipline where you have to have and grow continuously in your leadership capacity.
Okay. All right. So it sort of felt like an easy transition because you had already been trying to juggle elements of leadership. And what about you?
Okay, great.
Faith? Yeah. How did you dive into this world? Yeah.
I liked, actually you had said let's delve into this. I was like, so that's
together.
Yes, one play.
All right. And I wasn't even trying to.
Let me see what you did there.
All right. You guys, smart picking that one. Okay, so
let's delve into it. How did I delve into this? So basically, I've been in training consultancy about 13 years.
Okay.
But I think I was known more for TV the 4 years I was there. So I think it just got to a place where I felt this is where I thrive the most. Where I thrive the most is having conversations with people. And I like what's kind of said. So a lot of guys have the hardware. You have the papers, you have the vision, the mission statement to the organization, you have your career plan. So I kind of call that the hardware, which is probably similar to what is shared, but the software is missing. Because what happens is we help you implement your strategy.
Okay.
And what happens is soft skills help you implement your strategy.
Yeah.
It's about how people will work together. It's how cohesive they are. It's a leader who leads from the head, but also leads from the heart. Does that make sense? So who gets the vision and mission? But the heart kind of leader is the one who understands inspiration, motivation,
Yeah, compassion.
But also say the hand of the leader. The hand of the leader is a practicality. The hands-on leader, the one who coaches and trains you and kind of helps you do what you need to do. And you
Wow.
talk of the feet of the leader who will journey with you. You get, so they're almost elements that are needed. And a lot of times people focus on the hardware. They focus on the vision, the
Yeah.
mission,
Yeah.
the strategy. But
Targets.
you need the targets. But you need the
Yeah.
soft skills. You need the compassion. And you talk of how your communication skills as a leader. How do you relate with people? How are you able to organize a team and make it work?
Right.
So I think I felt that
You
the
can-
greatest value
yeah.
you can add is
Yeah.
help people make meaning of that journey and
Right.
achieve more.
Right.
Because ultimately it's really not the destination, it's the journey. Targets will change, and the world we're living in, you do a strategic plan, your competitors supersede you, you have to go back
Right.
to scratch.
Yeah.
So really it's the journey you take and how you add value to people in the
Wow.
process. So why did I continue doing it is I felt this deserves 100% of my attention and time as far as the career is concerned, and really to add value to people. And the best thing is the transformation we see. One of the things at Delve we do, we don't do just do training, we come back and see the return on investment and
Yeah.
the stories we get, oh my goodness, they're amazing. The stories of
Right.
transformation you hear from people's lives and teams, we are like, this is worth it. So
Right.
have I answered your question?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, as you were talking and describing the things that you look at, I
Yeah.
thought, wow, in many ways, that's what you would hope is taking place in a relationship through your parenting journey.
yes.
And I'm curious if you implement any of those strategies to your marriage,
Uh-huh.
and also how you're able to balance, you know, your personal lives
Yeah.
as man and wife
Yeah.
and running a company.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. That's
One
a
of the
good
biggest
question.
benefits of personal development and personal growth is that it's not limited. And often when we speak to clients or participants of client organizations we serve, we serve many, even tomorrow we're setting up a training, starting a 3-day training.
Yeah.
And what we usually say is, in as much as this is sponsored by the organization, and you know, some people feel it's like just ticking a box, you know what,
Right.
we've been signed up for training, let's just do it. We say that this goes beyond the role you play in this organization. It goes even into the next role you play in another organization, but it goes even beyond your work life. It goes into your relationship life. It goes into your parenting life. It goes even to possibly
Personal, like goals you set for
Absolutely,
yourself.
absolutely. So it's one of the best investments that an organization or an individual can get, because you're investing into yourself. So does it show up in our relationship? Absolutely. Does it show up in our parenting? In fact, I think the question should be, are there times we actually wish
Yeah.
we hit the pause button on the trainer, like don't go trainer on me, don't use this tool.
In the middle of an argument, like, I know what you're doing, George.
There you go.
I know
I have
exactly where you're going with that
the
point.
tool to get us out of this
It happened
situation.
last week. So there's this soul, and we need to share with you. It's really amazing. So there's this thing called the journey to composure. So it's an amazing, it's like a mat, you place it, and you kind of find where you are in town. They talk of the 3 personas of a leader, blah, blah,
Okay.
blah. So George is the guru. George is an excellent coach.
Yeah.
So there's a time he'll ask me, so where are you feeling that? And so are you feeling overextended? Overextended is where it's one
You
of
have your
those times.
underlying
okay.
persona,
So it's like, are you-
everyday persona, and
Overextended. So it's
Yeah.
like, are you feeling overextended now? Where are you feeling?
Can you
I'm like,
describe how you're
Can you
feeling right
describe
now?
how you're feeling?
Where are you
is
feeling it? Can
I'm
you-
like,
where's your
don't do
baby?
that to me right now. Validate me. Listen to me. Echo what I'm saying. Don't sort me out.
Don't go coach. It's not a coaching moment.
Yeah.
But
it's
I
amazing.
know. Someone was like, don't coach me. And
Yeah.
I'm like, validate me. Then after I validate, I was like, okay, continue your question. You're helping me out.
Yeah.
So
my
it's
gosh.
two-way. So we kind of have to be careful about it. But I think it's amazing when you can be authentic.
Yeah.
Where what we say in training is the same thing we talk with each
Living it
other.
out.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, when you're authentic as a leader, you don't have to change who you are when you're at home, you have to kind of be aware of the roles, because the roles are different, but you're the same person. And you see, what qualities do I need to bring here? Because you say there's who you are in terms of your personality, but there's the qualities you need to bring out more intentionally.
Yeah.
as a
Qualities of
leader.
your personality can bring
So,
out.
Yeah.
And feedback is key. I think feedback keeps coming back both ways. Feedback comes even from our eldest child is a 2.5-year-old.
Yeah.
I mean, he could hardly, he speaks, and he can speak a few sentences, a few words. I mean, I was telling Faith yesterday that I can't even believe where he got it. We were trying to do some task. I think I was preparing him to get his dinner or bedtime routine.
Yeah.
And he said something like, be patient.
Can you imagine?
Like, what? Where did you learn that? Yeah, you couldn't even
Isn't
properly
that
articulate it.
amazing?
And you're like, be patient.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
It shows you're on the right track. And I think ultimately, like even in a relationship, I think sometimes we feel like what role we play in the office has to be very focused and self-aware and grounded and introspective, but at home you can be yourself. And it's like, nah, if I'm pissed off, I'll show you, I'll slam a door. And it's almost like we don't allow for those things that we've learned outside to come into our homes. And ultimately, isn't that what you want in a partner? Someone who's able to call you out in a very gentle and kind way and be like, what are you feeling? Like,
what's really happening?
Yeah, where do you feel it? That sounds like my therapist also. By the way, when you said it, I was like, wow, you're taking me back to my therapist. Like, where are you feeling? Like, I'm feeling it in my back.
Yeah,
because
you can
a little bit,
feel it. Yeah.
Or even the
exactly.
triggers. Start talking about the triggers, because sometimes we see the evidence of a certain behavior. Like maybe someone goes off, and or goes. It depends. Either people who like literally fly off the handle. Other people will just clam up. And so it's very easy to see that symptom and want to address that symptom, but to start to look and see what could possibly be the trigger. And start having conversations around what could be triggering this behavior.
Right. So you nip it at the bud, right?
And sometimes
understand
we begin to address it, and that could be the same at the workplace or at home.
So let's, before we even get into work, which we will, ladies and gents, don't worry, we will get into transformational leadership at work. But since we're talking about home, how are you implementing, the strategies and elements that you've learned through transformational leadership into your parenting journey? How are you conscious about? Are you intentional about it?
I think you have to be intentional. I think one of the things just before we got our baby, we did a parenting class.
You have two kids.
Two children. So the firstborn.
Firstborn is 2.5.
Firstborn 2.5.
Okay.
They were both born the same date, 2 years apart.
Second one is a half.
Stop. You're kidding.
I know.
2.5 and
a half.
Yes.
Oh, birthdays are so much easier for you guys. You lucky.
I know. I keep asking
couple.
him, how on earth did you do it? Then it's December. It's good and bad because it's close to my birthday. So there goes my birthday.
And then Christmas.
All in one.
You guys.
All in one.
That's what we're going to. We're
all in one.
Parent planning. Like you guys you obviously got it right.
One big cake, one big party.
I must give credit. It's a miracle though, because getting the first one was really hard. We're told our chances are very low. So it's really a God thing.
Wow.
It really is. We can't say we planned.
So it's human engineering.
Both of them were. We just thank God.
But also, if you're talking about leadership, that's a good place to start. Like, if we're strategy and planning, and like, let me tell you how we did it, okay? Because obviously you got it right with our 2 kids born same day.
I think
it's interesting. But
sorry,
let's go back into parenting.
And so leadership, authentic leadership is also giving credit where it's due. Really, that was nothing about us. That we must be honest enough. But I think even about home, we had to be very authentic and very strategic and intentional. And as simple as we learned that for anything to be successful, there's a plan. He talked of a building. It just didn't happen. It was planned. And one of the things we really admire about people who've parented, a lot of times they'll say, we don't know. But when you really look at their lives, because sometimes they say, we don't know how they turned out well. But if you look at the things they did, they were intentional. They may not realize that's what added up. So I think we learned from other people who've gone ahead of us, and we're very big on structure. As a person, I'm not structured. I'm very happy-go-lucky. But with time, I came to look at different parents and see how their children are, even from a young age, and see there's a very dramatic 2-year-old, and there's still a 2-year-old who's not as dramatic. And when you look behind the scenes, you realize there's something the parents have done differently. Does that make sense? There's a child who's more cranky and others who's not, and they have personality. But with time, you realize the ones who seem a bit together, though they're still children, there's something intentional that was done. So we just started learning from people. Another things we're big on is systems and structures. Like they sleep 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. We're very big on
and
routines.
babies thrive on
They
that.
love the routine, they love the structure. Another thing I could probably add on is modeling.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
Modeling is
that's
so
the biggest.
That's why your son was able to say, be patient.
Can you believe that?
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh. In fact, we have an interesting conversation, Faith and I, because I don't eat bananas, and I've never eaten bananas for as long as I've been. I know, you can see.
Who doesn't
They're
eat
so
bananas?
cute. Okay. Yeah, actually, who doesn't
They're
eat
so
bananas?
convenient. Thank you,
So-
Sharon. Thank you,
I know everyone. I mean, in principle, I guess they make a lot of sense. You don't even have to wash your hands, whatever it is.
They're
That,
just easy. You can get them anywhere.
so here's the thing. I don't take them in any shape, way, or form. As in, like, even any banana, whether it's yogurt,
Ice cream,
nothing.
banana cake,
I bought
banana
Blue-
bread.
Zero.
I probably didn't wear a banana
Okay.
t-shirt with a banana.
And when we were dating, I
You're
told him
rebelling
one thing,
again.
Alenshaw.
Yeah.
That our children,
Kids will not be like that. They are
Okay.
going to eat the
Uh-oh.
bananas.
everything.
Oh no.
You know how the story ends.
Where is this?
You know how the story ends.
Yeah.
And so we are in that sort of space right now where he's not necessarily not eating them, but and he loved them as a young child. He loved them. In fact, you'd have to stop him from eating them. But I don't know how, somewhere along the way, he noticed Daddy doesn't take bananas. So now he's struggling to take them.
Oh.
So it's a daily
And by then we
try
try to, it's not, we're very intentional about
Yeah.
not letting him consciously.
Be
but he
a
picked
witness
that up.
of that. But he
Dad
picked
never
up.
that up.
says
Right.
Yeah.
In the same breath, so the things that you don't do, they're very
Right.
likely to not do. So if
Yeah.
you don't take alcohol, for instance, if you don't do whatever negative,
Shout
you know,
if you're not nasty.
Exactly. If you're not slamming doors,
Yeah.
if you're not raising
Yeah.
voice, if you're not,
by the
they
same
pick it
breath,
up. Modeling is a
everything
big
you
one
do.
of it.
In
Yeah.
fact, they say children have a way of perfecting.
Yeah.
With the same measure, in fact, sometimes they will double it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So even biblically, you see that children tend to do
And then you wonder, where did this come
in a very
from?
amplified way.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things we've noticed, that modeling is huge. You can speak about whatever, all virtues and all, principles of success in life, but if you're not living them out yourself, so even if it's screen time, TV, hours on end on TV, or all those
On your
negative
phone,
habits on your phone.
If you're on your phone
You
a lot,
can't.
you
Yeah.
watch your phone.
Yeah.
If you're
You
reading a
can't.
book,
Yeah.
So if you
That's
wanted to
true.
read, you have to read.
Yeah.
If you want to manage your screen time, you have to manage your screen time. If you're good on routines, if you're doing healthy living, then literally you
They'll
want to
pick
do
that up. I agree. I'm sorry. We've got to take a break. I know we could continue going on and on, but we've got to take a break. We'll be right back in a moment. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we'll dive into transformational leadership at the workplace. Welcome back, ladies and gents. We're here at Parkin by Radisson, and I've got the cutest couple ever, Faith Muturi Ngugi and George Ngugi, who started Delve Training Limited, which helps individuals and organizations go through their journey in becoming their best selves, and through transformational leadership specifically. Now, earlier you did mention, George, that for you it felt like architecture was in many ways a leadership role. And as you were speaking, I thought, I wonder then if you could say that about a lot of other career paths, that people would just be like, I'm not really a leader. I'm just, I don't know, fill in the blank, like a nurse or a teacher or an accountant. But so then my question to you would be, who is a leader? What makes a leader, or who is a leader?
I think I'll answer that with a statement that you don't actually need to have a title to be a leader. In fact, there's a book called The Leader Without a Title. And so I think that's a very interesting question. The word leadership, I think, possibly has as many definitions as the word life maybe.
Or love.
Or love.
Yeah.
And it's so familiar yet not as universally understood. So I guess a leader is someone who charts the path or sets the course, charts the path for people in a certain space. And as complex as the world is right now, we're living in the VUCA world, which is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. It could be in any direction. It could be an innovation leader. It could be a humane leader. It could be a leader of efficiency. It could be a leader of change, whatever the change is, or change culture. So I believe there's an opportunity for literally every person in an organization, in a team, to be a leader. Because first of all, I'm sure you hear of statements like there's a real leadership vacuum. There's a leadership deficit. We need leaders. We need leaders in our organization. We need leaders in the government. We need leaders in all arms of government. So there's so many opportunities. And I think some of the leaders we've seen in the world who've done really well give us the perfect example of what leadership means. If you look at Wangari Maathai, she had virtually no title.
But she was an incredible leader.
And her legacy lives on.
Lives on, exactly. So essentially what you're saying, doesn't matter if you are the head of state governing 40 million people or the janitor, you still have an opportunity to lead as long as you understand what it is that you want and you're charting your course.
Leadership is influence, basically.
Yeah.
So the definition could pretty much be the same as the definition of influence.
Okay.
And it could be positive
or negative. Okay.
Yeah.
So in that same breath, then, Faith, what would you say transformational leadership is?
Okay. I think it's being intentional about influence.
Okay.
Because leadership is influence. I'll give an example. As you gave Wangari Maathai, if you look at the people who changed history in the biggest ways, they started by being intentional, but to influence in the smallest ways, but it's from a heart level. So transformational leadership is simply being influential, intentional, and it's from a heart level.
So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Would someone like Hitler
Yeah.
qualify as a transformational leader if he believes it's from the heart? He charted his course and he had incredible influence.
Sadly, negatively so.
So you can be a transformational leader.
Positive or negative. He didn't change. But that's why we're talking about him. So transformational is negative. Is negative as well positive, and we can't deny it. Does that make sense? But it's now how you choose to be intentional to do good.
Right.
And I'll give an example. As you were saying, there's Hitler who did negatively. He was intentional, and he didn't start with a whole vision. He started with one step. But Wangai Maathai as well, she started with the women in the village. That's how she got where she was. If you look at Mahatma Gandhi, if you look at Mandela, all of those people, they initially didn't start with a title. And I think it's sad in the workplace, people are looking for the title manager, for the promotion. It's a good thing. But the real impact that will surpass your stay and surpass the position has to be leading beyond title. But you don't need a title, but what you choose to be is to be intentional. You choose to influence the person right next to you. And so we talk of influencing 360, where you must lead from the top, you must learn to lead your boss.
Oh,
influence your boss.
Girl, you better explain that. How do you lead?
So let me talk about 360. Then we go to the boss. So it's leading your boss, leading your peers, and leading the people who are under you in a sense. Direct reports. Thank you. So leading your boss is simply influence.
Look at that. You guys are so cute, helping each other. Like, let me just finish her sentence and like, all right, okay. So leading your boss.
Thank you. I forgot it. I'm like, so where are we?
Leading your boss.
As simple as 10 people will go to the boss with a request in a day. Who gets the request done? Who is it who the boss will say yes to? Because they won't say 10 yeses. But they somehow consistently will say yes to a certain person. And people call it bias. I think it's called influence. And there are people who, irrespective of the job they get, they always kind of get to influence their boss. Now, there are those who are bootlickers, there are those who are allowed to be treaded on, but there are those who will study the boss, understand the boss, and learn to influence the boss. Does that make sense? They learn to speak their language. They learn to. So if they like strategy, they'll talk in terms of strategy. What moves him?
What's the bottom line? What really matters?
Exactly.
He also has a boss. Everybody, CEO has the board to answer to. Sometimes part of a group, you have a group, and all that. And why are we here? So possibly, if the boss at some point had an influence to having you come on board on the team, it's because he felt that you have an integral part in the bigger whole. The picture is the bigger whole. So that's why, if you're able to connect with them at that level, and like for instance, when you're probably at mid-level management, and mid-level managers are very powerful because they connect with the top-level management, ex-co and whatever it is right up to the board, and they connect with other members of staff in the organization. And so they're in a very unique place where they're able to know what is required strategically, what we need to do as a company, bottom line.
So let me ask, how do you get to learn your boss's language? What should you pick up on so that you get to understand?
One, listen. You know, kids normally are asked, what's the one thing that pisses off your mom? They know. What pisses off your dad? They know. Learn them as a person, but also learn them as their role. So what will come up in their appraisal? You have an idea. Make it your priority. Does that make sense? What are they supposed to achieve? Make it your priority. Number two, what are they particularly interested about? Because ultimately the boss is a person, not just a role. So when you get those two right, you'll understand. Listen in meetings. What do they complain about? If they complain about reports being late, be the one person whose report is a day before the due date. Does that make sense? If the CEO has said this year we're looking at being customer-centric, ensure that there's not a single customer complaint you don't take up. Or the most complaining customer, you say, I'll take them up. If you know they normally complain on Wednesdays, call them on Monday. Visit them at their office so that you're the person who's taking away the stress of this person. It's just like your house help. If they take care of your baby, you're not worried about the windows. Because your baby is what matters to you.
Absolutely. Exactly.
You will keep
I
the
don't care
windows.
if the entire house is a mess. If I have a happy baby.
Exactly.
Now
So that's a wise
and
nanny.
translate it to the workplace
To the
setting.
workplace.
You think that they're interested in the politics, sometimes they're not. What is the ultimate thing?
What's their concern?
For the organization, for him.
So let's break down what are the elements of transformational leadership.
Can you take that? Or I continue with the head, heart. Okay. I
Okay.
kind of touched on it. So
Yeah.
we talked of the head of a leader, the heart
Yeah.
of a leader, the hands of a leader, and the feet of a leader.
Okay.
And a lot of them I've actually learned from him. So and I shared earlier, I was like, oops, I kind of shared what he's best at.
Yeah.
And we had agreed earlier he'll take it up.
Yeah.
So the head of a leader is more vision, more of strategy, more of where do we want to go. And then the heart of the leader is the passion, the drive, the commitment. And a big part of it is vulnerability.
Which is scary to try and like
connect with
take
people.
up in the office when people, you know, you can be vulnerable at home. Ideally it should be a safe space to do that.
I
But
think
at the
authenticity
office,
and vulnerability, what happens, it's often misconstrued. People see that when you're authentic, especially authentic, and vulnerable, let's talk about authentic, for instance. So authenticity, you know, I mean, is really about, for instance, just having high level of integrity, also having, sometimes just being courageous to even say that the aspects of a certain task you don't have a full grasp of. For instance, you have scenarios where we have leaders who have lots of years of experience and they have a good position, but they may not be as well versed with the technology, especially with the disruption and the new. I mean, there's so much coming up in tech, fintech, and all different types of tech.
Yeah.
And so it takes a lot of integrity to say, I'm not that good in this. I don't get this system, this new system. I'm having a bit of a trouble getting my way around it.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make you weak as a leader. It actually shows a very high level of vulnerability, because it doesn't take away all the strengths that you have, and there are many, you know. And so when you start taking that into the workplace as a leader, that you start now speaking from the heart, there are times that you will be the one who probably has a challenge, but you'll also have the tenderness and the sensitivity to people on your team, and there are many, because there are leaders who have leaders under them who lead other people. And so if you're able to translate that sensitivity and authenticity to the people you lead, by extension, so if you lead 10 people, who lead 10 people each, can you see how one person's actions will
affects
affect
everything else.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's head, that's heart, right?
Yes.
Head,
And
heart.
then-
You had said hands.
Yes, hands
Yeah?
of a leader. That's just practicality. Are you able to have an idea of what's happening? As you said, you don't have to understand everything, but you have a feel of it. When you study a lot of transformational leaders, you'll find that even if it's CEO, they probably will take their first 3 to 6 months understanding the system. You'll hear of people who will tell the driver, okay, I just want to spend the day with you to understand what you do. Does that make sense? Because the driver, when they do their laps, you kind of get to know what's really happening. You find a leader who will say, I remember there's this guy who did a lot of change in KWS, and he said that he actually went, keep me a teach, thank you. As you can see, the memory, where I learned it. Keep me a teach. He actually went with, what are they called? The guys?
the Rangers.
The Rangers.
Yeah.
He'd spent time with the Rangers.
Okay.
Because they're thinking, if we need to deal with poaching,
Yeah.
you need to understand the Rangers part of the story.
Right.
Does that make sense?
And understand how
Understand.
difficult it is. Sometimes
And
they're
what it takes.
outside, you know, at night. They do night patrols. It's
That's
raining,
why
and
also
they still
in
have
the
to
same
be
breath-
there.
You know, he spent the night with them and entered a tent
Yeah.
where 3 of them were.
Yeah.
So they kind of went out, and he's like, no, we're all spending the night in this tent.
Wow.
That's the
in the
practical
same
side
breath,
of
even
it.
at head of state level, if you look at some of the leaders of some of the biggest and most powerful countries, they often have to go down on the front lines when they have troops, you know, like maybe whatever they have. I don't want to mention any name. You find that it's a very big part of a head of state's role, especially being a commander in chief, to sometimes go down into the base or sometimes go onto the front lines from time to time
To
connect and to understand
Yeah.
what's happening. And often next
Right.
level also, John Maxwell talks about how as you raise leaders, you also need to do.
Yeah.
Your hands are to do.
Yeah.
You shouldn't ask people to do tasks that you aren't actually proficient in.
Right.
Sometimes you actually need people to see you deliver on that task. And sometimes you model for them, and sometimes you show them how to do it, sometimes you let them do it and you watch. So there's a whole
And
process
learn. Yeah.
of how the hands of a leader
Right.
work.
Absolutely.
So, and then last
The
one is
feet is connected,
Okay.
just what they say. So then you journey with your people.
Yeah.
There's something, John Maxwell, someone you really admire. And I think in about 2006, I did this course, and he said it's lonely at the top. And I'm sure
It's
you've
lonely at the
lonely.
top.
I'm sure
Okay.
you've had
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
So he used to teach that. I remember doing a leadership course then, and I was like, yeah, it's true. But then a few years back, he wrote a book, which is very rare, and he said, I've taught something for a long time, but I was wrong. Can you imagine?
All right.
That's so vulnerable.
Whoa.
It's called leadership gold.
Whoa! I just got goosebumps from that.
I know.
Okay.
So he said, I've taught for a long time that it's lonely at the top, and if you know me, I've taught that. I'm like, yeah. We know that.
Yeah.
And he said, if you're lonely at the top, there's something wrong. You need to go back to your guys and get them. Does that make sense? Because it means you got the
haven't
vision, you
raised.
cast the vision, you were journeying, but then you went ahead. Whether they lagged behind intentionally or not, you're now alone. You need to go back and get
And
them
raise more leaders.
and raise more leaders.
In fact, the
Ain't that
highest
the
level,
truth? Like that one's really hit me at my core.
highest
yeah.
level, he has 5 levels of leadership, and the highest level of leadership is reproduction.
Okay.
And reproduction is actually being able to get now other leaders, produce other leaders like yourself.
Right.
must
And
join
why
in
and why
them.
do you think that that's scary for a lot of people? Why do you think a lot of people are okay to say it's lonely at the top? 'Cause
Yeah.
that's the sense I get.
That-
That it's okay to just be a few. Or do you feel in your
I think it's a very
training and-
defeatist statement. Almost say like, oh, I wish there was someone else like me, or it's lonely at the top, or there's no one in this organization who gets it, you know?
Yeah.
And that means that you're setting up that organization to fail, because when you leave, not if, but when you leave,
Yeah.
things will literally start to fall apart.
Right.
Absolutely.
And that's at the end of the day, that
Happens
can't be
very
what
quickly.
you want for
Yeah.
yourself or for the company or for the legacy of whatever it
Absolutely.
is that you're doing.
And we love saying, as a leader, take a selfie. Because when you take a selfie, it's acknowledging that if my people, you see, if you're taking a selfie with your team and they're not there,
Yeah.
you're on your own.
Yeah.
So if in that selfie your team is not there,
That's
accept they're not
Yeah.
there and go back for them.
right. Okay. That's a good note to end the second part. We've got to take a break. We'll be back in a moment, ladies and gents. Welcome back, ladies and gents. I've got Faith and George here, and we've been talking about transformational leadership. Oh, were you holding hands for a second? I was like, they're so cute. They're holding hands.
We could, hey?
They're a
But
couple.
you were working, so focus.
Yeah. If you're just joining us, they are a married couple, and they help people try and be transformational leaders
Just
in
to throw
every
it
aspect.
in, some of our clients maybe don't know that, so maybe they're learning.
Oh, no way.
It's okay, but we keep it professional. That's the thing. We have this client we
not a
journeyed
secret.
with. We journeyed with for several years. They're like,
No.
you guys, I know.
But he wasn't like, or she wasn't like, but how come you have this same last name?
They know me more as Faith Muturi. Yeah.
Mm,
we just
professional. All right. Okay, so for this next segment, the reason we have this out is because one of the first things I want to ask you
Yeah.
is about how you measure effectiveness. How do you
Yeah.
know that you're actually on the right track
Yes.
and that you're getting the outcomes that you wanted? And earlier we talked a little bit about Hitler, right? And how it's
Yeah.
like, well, is he a transformational leader if he ticks certain boxes? So how do I know if I'm on the right track?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this is one of the tools that we use. This is the leadership circle.
Yeah.
One of the global leading tools in leadership development.
Okay.
And we are certified in it, among the few certified practitioners in Africa. And we'd love just quickly take you through this tool.
And just about it, it's so effective. It's rated top 4 by Forbes.
What?
I know. So
Exactly.
and simply because of, you'll see why.
Okay.
Yeah.
Currently,
So,
about 150,000 leaders have gone through this tool globally. And there's a database of about 1.5 million evaluations done.
So it's tried and
Wow.
tested.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
got a bit of data.
are you asking me questions, or I guess you'll tell me
We'll just
what?
walk you through the tool.
Oh,
if
okay,
you
we'll
don't
walk
mind.
through it,
And
okay.
hopefully that just opens up the conversation.
Okay,
to see.
okay.
And this is just one of many tools that you can use to measure leadership effectiveness. So
Okay.
very quickly,
Yeah.
it's a circle as you see.
Yes.
And let's start with the top half. The top half of the circle, from where I'm standing, going up that way,
Yeah.
we have something we like to call creative competencies.
Okay.
So that's where you guys are standing.
Yeah.
That's creative. I think you're creative, so that's creative.
Yeah. I'll stand here.
Creative, that's nice. I thought you should have been there.
Huh? On the lower
Reactive.
half, on the lower half of the circle, we have something we like to call reactive tendencies.
Okay.
So I should probably point out at this point that this circle is representative of an individual.
Okay.
That it's not that Sharon and Faith are creative and creative alone.
Yeah.
Or there's an individual who's reactive and reactive alone. It's saying that this is a whole.
Right.
Like the circle of life.
Yeah.
So of course at the heart of it is identity.
Ah.
So on creative we have 18 competencies.
Okay.
Let's call them creative competencies. And there's some broad strokes which I like to just highlight. Here we have relating,
Okay.
we have self-awareness,
Uh-huh.
we have authenticity, we have systems awareness,
Yeah.
and we have achieving.
Okay.
So those are broad positive or broad strokes of creative competencies.
Yeah.
And then on the this other lower side, if I call it the lower side, is what we
Yeah.
like to call reactive tendencies.
Okay.
Now, so creative competencies are how leaders basically are able to express themselves in these creative ways. On the reactive tendencies, I want to put it this way: reactive is what comes into play when you're under pressure.
Okay.
And all of us sometimes could be under pressure, under stress. There could
yeah.
be something that causes you to actually like to even think of what you like to call the reptilian. You know the reptilian mind?
Yeah.
When you're under pressure, if you look at in the wild, how that mind of a reptilian animal works,
Yeah.
it's either fight or flight.
Right.
So when you're under pressure, you either want to fight someone or just take off.
Yeah.
And so what comes into play, we have controlling, we have protecting, and we have complying. So these are broad strokes.
So let me ask a question here.
Yes.
Generally, is it that you don't want to be reactive?
You don't.
You don't want
You
to be
shouldn't
reactive.
want
Just to
be
be
as a
clear.
leader.
Yeah. Okay.
But often, life, and like I said, all of us come inbuilt with some form
Right.
of reactive.
Yeah.
And it's the natural, almost natural thing to do.
Right. So you have to fight that instinct.
You have to be able to really be
Okay.
conscious about it.
Okay.
manage
So
it.
To
what we
manage
pointed
it.
at this
Okay.
point is that none of us can actually operate without some reactive.
Yeah.
And it's useful to some degree.
Of course, because for instance, if there was a fire, you don't need to sit and be like, what's the best way to handle
sort of
it?
analysis.
It's more like,
Yeah.
out,
Yeah.
everyone, ring the
Thank
bell, let
you.
everyone know,
Thank
let's
you.
move.
Yeah.
It's not
Right?
about time to be very democratic and all that.
Yeah.
So very quickly on controlling, we have aspects like autocratic, ambitious, driven, and perfect.
Where are you reading? Oh, up here.
Up
Yes.
here.
Right.
Now those
Okay.
are aspects. The 11 aspects or 11 dimensions of control of,
Okay.
of reactive.
Yeah.
On protecting, we have arrogance, we have critical, and we have distance.
See that?
Okay.
So on protecting, we're basically talking about building walls.
Yeah.
And if you build
Ah.
walls, and there are leaders who build walls, they're very distant. They say they have an open
Right.
door, but they don't really.
Right.
It said, well, you have an open door policy, but he has an open mind. Oh, he has a
Closed
closed
mind.
mind.
He has a
Open
closed
door,
mind.
closed
mind.
Open
Yeah.
door policy, closed mind,
Closed
because
mind.
that means he's arrogant, critical,
And
Or he may
and
have one of
and
them.
distant.
He may have
Okay.
one of them. So what
Protecting.
happens?
Or
is that-
she.
Yeah,
He or
he or
she.
she.
Yeah.
So what you probably mentioned as a continue is that some of these aspects are, if you go right across the circle,
Yeah.
you'll see an aspect or a competencies that are exact opposite of that.
Okay.
That protecting is at the opposite of authentic.
Remember we talked about that?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and you
You're
asked
very
why
high on
aren't
that. So go ahead,
right.
go
You'd
ahead.
ask, why are people authentic?
Yeah.
Because they're being protecting.
Right.
Makes
Because
sense?
not
It's
people to see
yeah.
your
It's
weaknesses.
self-preservation. I don't
Absolutely.
want
High
to be
walls,
seen.
very
Yeah.
high walls.
Yeah.
So when you're authentic, you have high integrity, and you also have courageous authenticity. Like I said, that you're
Okay.
actually not afraid sometimes to just speak authentically about certain things. Sometimes it's just a tough conversation. Sometimes in organizations, people may be doing, there's some things everybody sort of knows about, like maybe using company resources not well, or there's something people are doing, and you need to call it out. But you just aren't courageous enough
To do
if you can relate to
that. Yeah, absolutely.
And so protecting does that. You create distance, or maybe you're more critical and arrogant.
Sorry.
And then on complying,
I could stand here, you stand there.
great.
Uh-oh.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, there we
fine.
go.
Yeah.
The wind is against us.
Oh, yeah,
I'll
stand
step
here.
here.
Go on, go.
And you
Yes.
could-
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Probably
Perfect.
come
Perfect.
here.
There you go. Then here we have complying. Complying basically means as a leader, you're very high on wanting to please, so to speak, or you want to just comply. You don't want to ruffle feathers.
Yeah.
We could talk about the relationship versus task.
Yes, thank
And
you.
how-
So
yeah.
there's
Yeah.
creative, reactive, then relationship and task. So very quickly, you'll
You see
notice that
You
down
see
the
the
center,
relationship
Yeah.
is here.
on
Yeah.
one side you sit at the right hand side and
Yeah.
is relationship, on this left hand side is task, this side is relationship. So what we are saying is on the creative side,
Yeah.
this creative competence is related to task,
Okay.
So
which are there. That is achieving systems awareness and part of authenticity.
Yeah.
Down the middle like that.
Okay.
Then also on reactive, there are reactive tendencies that are strictly related to task again.
Okay.
That is controlling and protecting, part of protecting. That means
Okay.
people who are very perfectionist, very driven, very ambitious, very autocratic, very arrogant.
Ah.
It's more related to doing tasks.
Okay.
Then there's creative competencies related to relationships,
Yeah.
such as relating, self-awareness, and authenticity,
Yeah.
which are more, part of authenticity are more closer towards relationships. There's also reactive tendencies, also closer to relationships.
Okay.
That means you could be trying to build relationships. That's like complying, that's passive, conservative, pleasing, belonging.
Pleasing.
You want to be one of the guys.
Okay.
So what we're saying is that there are times you could actually be building relationships, but in a reactive way.
Ah.
Does that make sense?
Rather than in a creative
Yeah,
way.
absolutely.
And yeah, and creative
And
was
You'll
okay.
notice they're near enemies.
Yeah.
So you're really good
There's
at
a
relating.
balance. There's a fine line.
Very
Very.
fine line, absolutely. So you're really good at relating, but you can easily be complying. You can
Thinking that
easily
you're
be
Okay.
pleasing.
You could be very
Right.
easily complying,
Yeah.
because relating is basically having creating connection, fostering team play, mentoring, developing, collaborating yourself as leader.
Yeah.
Whether you're having interpersonal intelligence.
Okay.
But complying is very conservative.
So where's the ultimate? Where do we want
So what
to be
happens
as
once
leaders?
you get this tool? It's an assessment tool.
Yeah.
So this is just a model.
Oh, so you first start by asking, just trying to figure out where you are.
Thank you.
All
So
right.
we will actually send you a link, Sharon.
Okay.
And you'll be able to just go through the assessment.
Which we'll put on our Instagram Instagram pages too, so that you guys can take it too and see where you fall.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if that's okay.
And that's a good place to start because you do a self-assessment link.
Okay.
It'll give you ratings. But this tool is used for self-assessment, but it's also used for 360 feedback. Like Faith said, you can be evaluated by your boss, by your boss's boss, by your peers, by the people who are under your direct reports,
Yeah.
and even by another person. You can put a spouse, former colleague, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And what happens is you will get ratings on each of these. Earlier on we mentioned these are percentiles.
Yeah.
So you notice this is from 0 to 100,
Right.
10, 20, all the way to 100. So these percentiles are normative scores based on the database. There's a database of about, like I said, 150,000 leaders who have gone through this globally.
Yeah.
So when you do this, there'll be norming. Whatever you score in the
Okay.
assessment will be normed against the database.
Right.
So when we say percentiles, we don't mean percentages.
Okay.
For instance, for the reactive, they have done studies and they've shown that generally, as long as you can keep it within the 33rd percentile,
Yeah.
it's
Around
okay.
there. It's not too bad.
Yeah.
So 33rd percentile for all of these.
Okay.
For reactive, for creative, you need to go as high as possibly you
Okay.
can. But what you'll notice when you do the assessment, you may be high in certain aspects and maybe not so high in others.
Yeah.
And that now starts to form a roadmap, for instance, for coaching.
Okay.
You can be able to say, it looks like I'm low in achieving, but I'm very high in relating. So I'm good in relating. What do I need to start to do consciously?
Right, to improve
grow?
and to better yourself.
And what
Oh
we
my
say,
gosh, okay.
because you asked what's the ultimate, we encourage a mushroom kind.
The
Yeah.
results,
Where
the
you
studies have shown.
are high on creative
Yeah.
and less on
Reactive.
So studies
Reactive.
studies
Yeah.
were done about 400 companies in the US, some
Yeah.
of the leading companies in the US,
Globally, actually.
globally and in
Yeah.
the US as well. 400 of the best performing companies. And then they got to measure 10%, the top 10% of those 400,
In terms
and
of
the
performance.
bottom 10% performance.
Yeah.
And they were able to realize that there's a very strong correlation between leadership effectiveness and business performance.
Can you imagine?
Of
And
course,
those
yeah.
organizations, that 10%, the leaders had very high, we call it the
Of
mushroom
course,
cloud.
but it makes sense. So would I give my best if I don't even like my boss and I
Yeah.
don't understand their vision and
Absolutely.
they're not invested in
Absolutely.
me? Would I give my best?
And the opposite is
You
true.
know?
That organizations with a very high reactive, you find it has a correlation on the business performance.
So it
Wow,
affects
look
your
at
bottom
that.
line.
Yeah.
And the beauty is you're able to scientifically prove that as a leader, if you grow yourself more and more of your creative,
Yeah.
that the performance of the business, the bottom line. You know, some people say, "Oh, this is soft skills. We
Yeah.
need to do some tough stuff."
Right, right.
But the truth is, your bottom line will have a correlation,
Yeah.
and that's how we help people to thrive
Right.
more in the creative as you manage the reactive. Why we say there are times to be controlling as a leader.
Yeah.
Autocratic.
There are times to be complying. There are times to say it's okay.
Yeah.
Let it
The
go
times
for
to create
today.
distance.
Yeah.
There are times to be a bit protecting, but we say you need to manage it.
Right.
But thrive as much as you can.
This one's
And
going to
this
get to the
side.
highest possible
Yeah.
level,
Yeah.
because
So-
all of them are positive.
So let me ask you, in this day and age, I
Yeah.
can't imagine. I mean, it must be very different
Yeah.
being a leader at the top of your organization in this day and age
Yeah.
than it was 30 years ago. And it's because I don't know if there's an organization that isn't at some level online, that they don't have a digital presence. And it's been very disruptive. So how do you lead creatively and all these things when technology and
Yeah.
innovation
Yeah.
is pushing so many new things, like
And you feel like
in like
the ground is
24.
not very
I mean,
stable.
here's an example. Remember when Kylie Jenner was like, she tweeted randomly, who's on Snapchat these days? Because I'm not even like on there at all anymore. And within 24 hours, I don't know, there were reports that it had gone down a couple $1 million.
Even the stock
The
value.
stock value had
Yeah.
gone down because of a tweet.
Yes.
So technology, what I'm trying to say
Yeah.
is,
Disruption
it's
is
been
so real.
it's been so disruptive. So how do you lead in such a disruptive age?
I think what I like about this is it develops a lot of principles that are timeless. I'll
Okay.
give an example. What a leader must do is they must still find a way to have relating and connection with their people despite the distance.
Okay.
And that's why you notice the organization, so even having Skype meetings.
Okay.
So that I find out how you're doing even if you're across the globe.
Yeah.
You must find a way to connect with your people irrespective of the distance.
Okay.
You might find a way to help people achieve their tasks and their results irrespective. Why? And also have vulnerability, which is very rare. It's in social media, you get to know everything about everyone except their real self. So we are protecting as a generation. We only show the
Right.
good side.
Yeah.
So
and
I was-
companies as well. I mean, in that light, I
Exactly.
guess
All the
positive
you'll
PR.
be like, this is what we're doing. We're great. We're like giving,
Yeah.
and this is our,
Yeah.
giving back to society. And
Yes.
But then something
day.
wrong happens, and maybe they're not as open to.
they're not as authentic.
Okay.
And that's why I think Jeff Bezos was sharing that he was in this forum and this lady was really frustrated, and it's out there. And she came and said, I'm really frustrated. And he paused everything and said, what's happening? And he said, we've actually done something really wrong and we're really sorry. So it was a conference, and it's easy to think he had many people protecting him and all, and he was open about it, like it's all over social media, that he's authentic enough to say, you know what, you could be from a different state, a different country, but I'll take time to know you and care about you and create a caring connection irrespective of our distance.
And being one of the richest people, Jeff Bezos, even Bill Gates said time and time again that he spent lots and lots of time on customer feedback, because when you listen to that feedback and are proactive, you're able to actually be able to keep your clients. And something interesting I'll probably mention, disruption, the VUCA age, all notwithstanding, if you're purposeful...
Can you explain what that
VUCA.
acronym
VUCA.
stands
Yes.
for
So
again?
V
You
stands
mentioned
for
it.
volatility,
Yeah.
U stands for uncertainty, C stands for complexity, and A stands for ambiguity.
Okay, so
Which is
in
the
the
world
VUCA,
today.
okay,
That's how the world,
yeah,
we live in the
that's
VUCA
true.
world. So
Right,
despite the VUCA world,
yeah.
I mean, fine, you may even have self-driving technology. Now cars are, the technology is ready for self-drive.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's all this happening with the Internet of Things,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden now all the devices can talk to each other.
Yeah.
But as long as you have a strategic focus, because you are aware of that,
Yeah.
and whatever industry you're in, whether it's in the financial services, banking, people are going branchless, whether
Yeah.
people will be going on fintech and whatnot,
Right.
whether it's insurance, medical care, that people can even be diagnosed across the world,
Yeah.
that's happening. As long as an organization, as a leader, you're purposeful and visionary, this is where things are going. We talk about innovation. As long as you're a systems thinker, as long as you're also working on sustainable productivity,
Yeah.
community concern. There's
Right.
a community that you're serving.
Right.
What does this community need?
Right.
So
So
to
I-
continuously tap into each and one of these, because they're actually in tune with the needs. This is designed for people.
Yeah.
So technology is for people.
Yeah.
So as a leader, as long as you're consciously tapping in, that's what keeps on making
So not to
Amazon.
be scared of it, but to embrace it and to see it as a tool to connect, and not just even with your employees, but also with the audience, with your community, the end user.
And
All
we,
right.
we say these are the same things at home,
Right, of course, yeah.
because you started with that. So how do you
Yeah.
do it at home as
Yeah.
well? How do you
Actually,
still
that's a great
ensure-
way to end it. Yeah, this is the
Yeah.
same things that you
Exactly. So with
you
your
ought
kids,
to have and be aware of it.
What are the
and
new
let's say when
challenges?
you
Yeah.
come home, do you spend time to just find out how they are, or
Yeah.
do you just find out about their homework?
And are you
are
reacting?
Does that
great.
make sense?
Yep, I get
so
it.
managing tasks and relationships. When they don't take to you, when they're distant, are you willing to come and be
Be more
authentic,
authentic.
enough
And
and
say, I'm
say,
sorry, I've been really busy at work.
Yeah.
I'm sorry
Well,
I didn't get you the thing.
get
I-
courageous enough to address some tough
So
things?
this
course.
actually reduces this. When you go high on these,
It
you
naturally.
naturally
reduces.
that.
We
Yeah.
have to get this link. We have to get this link, and we have to share it with you because
We'll
this is
share the
something
details
everyone.
of how to do
yeah,
it,
yeah.
of how they can get it,
And
because
that's
it's a
okay.
process.
It's a process. Okay,
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll try our best. But I think ultimately what I'm hearing is that leadership involves a high level of self-awareness and to be very, very open with yourself about your strengths, your weaknesses, where you need to improve,
Yeah.
And
where you
then-
need to let go.
And starting to also consciously allow yourself to chart a pathway
Right, of
Yeah.
course.
towards where you
So-
need to go.
All right.
So we'll share the
Thank-
link of how they
yes.
can get in touch with us, and
Yes.
then we'll share how it's available.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
How's that?
That's perfect. That's perfect. So we'll get you in touch with them. Actually, how
Training.
Delve Training is
www.delvetraining.com.
.com. There you go. And then you can take this test and get to understand where you are. And again, you don't have to be top of your company CEO. You could just be a mom or a dad, and you're looking to see how best you can lead within your home. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Cutest
Amazing.
couple ever. Honestly,
Thanks
you're
for
so
having
adorable,
us.
just like helping each other. Remember this, honey. Let me hold this here for you. Okay. We've got to go. We've got to love you and leave you now. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed and learned something about transformational leadership. And that's something that we can all strive for in our daily lives. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you to Park In by Radisson. We'll be back tomorrow, 8 a.m. sharp. For now, have a great rest of the day and keep it on NTV. Bye, everybody.